Welcome to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Before we get into today's episode, I want to let you know that we're doing something a little different over the next several months. We're bringing back the most downloaded, the most talked about episodes from the last 9 years of A Well-Designed Business. These are the episodes that built businesses, that sparked aha moments, that turned you into an action taker. Now, if you're wondering why we're revisiting these episodes and what's changing with the show overall, well, I walk you through the full vision in our April 25th, 2025 episode titled The Big Shift, What's Changing on a Well-Designed Business and Why. That episode is linked for you in the show notes. Now, a quick heads up. These episodes are airing as they originally did. That means the music might sound familiar or it might be vintage. That means the event dates will definitely be out of date that I talk about. And it also means that any offers that are mentioned may or may not be valid still. But the insights, still golden. So whether it's your first time hearing this episode or your fifth time hearing it, there's something in this conversation for you right now in this season of your business. So here's the show. I hope you enjoy it. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business and Power Talk Friday. And I have Fred Berns with me. Hi Fred, how are you?
Good morning, LuAnn. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good. I'm so glad. I love it when you're on the show because I know that I need my pen and paper out. And I always tell everybody they need their pen and paper out when you're on the show. So if this is somebody's first time actually listening to Fred Berns on my show, I have to tell you this is probably your third or fourth appearance because you just bring the value. And I'm okay with anybody who brings a value. And that's what it is. It's episode number 22, number 48, 96. And this is your fourth time on the show, Fred.
Wow.
So, yeah, right? So let me tell everybody a little bit about you just in case this is the first time they're joining A Well-Designed Business and meeting you. So Fred Berns is the only interior design industry business coach and speaker who creates personal bios and other promotional materials for design professionals worldwide. Fred has more than 25 years experience training design professionals from Dallas to Dubai and creating their online profiles, website, and social media copy, blogs, and marketing forms. In addition, he offers a wide range of business coaching services, including his high-performance coaching program, his bio briefing, and his website once over. So today, though, we're going to talk with Fred about the only. Why is the only word so important? And this is like tagged on to our Design Bloggers series here. And Fred was a speaker at the Design Bloggers Conference in LA in March. In that program there, he talked about your bio briefing, how to create your bio. But I mentioned, Fred, in my presentation, and the only, figuring out your only and why Fred says it's important. So here we're going to have just a Power Talk Friday pulling this apart for us a little bit more. So Fred, talk to us about this only and why it's important for each of us to figure out our only.
Well, I want to do so by beginning with a question for you, LuAnn. When you Google interior designer Denver, how many entries do you suppose you come across?
I would imagine many in Denver, big city, right?
Right.
I mean, there's probably, could there be a dozen, 2 dozen? I mean, there probably is 5 dozen, but maybe a dozen or 2 come up probably, right?
When you Google interior designer Denver, you come up with 21 million entries. 21 million entries. So come
Okay.
on, there's a lot of competition out
Wait,
there.
so here I am, like 24. And by the way, frankly,
Incredible how many
24 who
people
was
are calling themselves interior designers today. It has never been easier to get elsewhere the design services that you provide. That's the bad news. The good news is the one thing that separates you is you
right.
and your staff. And that is why the word only is so important. To be able to say you're the only design professional who is the best way to differentiate and distinguish yourself in this very, very crowded marketplace. And I want to tell you, and I want to tell all the people listening to this, that everyone has his or her only. There's no one listening to this program who does not have an only. It's just a matter of pinpointing it and promoting it in a way that the people they need to know understand their value. And so this is the $1 million word, the $1 million marketing word that every design professional should embrace and memorize from the get-go.
So, what is the deal with that, though? Because I've had this discussion because you and I have talked about this a little bit. And of course, as I said, I mentioned it in the Design Bloggers presentation. And I've had designers say to me, come on, like, how do I figure out my only? And I've learned from you in the last year, and I say certain things, but here we have our guru in front of us. So when a designer you're working with, Fred, says, all right, but how do I know what my only is? How do I figure it out? How do you help them arrive at that?
Well, you have to put your business and your career under a microscope and really dissect everything that makes you unique. And let me just give you some categories to consider as you try to pinpoint your only phrase. And again, by only phrase, I mean to say Susan Swanson is the area's only LEED certified designer, for example, or Joe Smith is the area's only kitchen and bath professional who has an accounting degree, something like that. That's what I mean by an only phrase. I call it the phrase that pays. But here are the categories to consider when you're trying to figure out what your only is. Awards and other honors. Are you the only design professional in your area who's won a certain award or other honors? Are you the only one who has a design specialty in your area that others do not? Talk about your experience. How many years experience do you have and type of experience you have? It may very well be that you are the only one in your area who has that extent of experience. Certainly accomplishments and achievements are unique to you. What are those accomplishments and achievements of which you're most proud? And that should be built into your only phrase. Your skills and capabilities. Can you do something? Can you offer something that no other design professional in your area does? And if so, you have a very powerful only statement right there. Other qualifications you may have would be a category to think of. Unique products and services. Sometimes design professionals overlook the fact that they are the only one in their area who offers a certain type of product line, or the only one who provides a certain type of service. Maybe you're the only design professional in your area who offers staging services, for example. If so, then that is your only statement. Your publication history. Where and how have you been published? Some of our listeners have been published internationally, in online and print media all around the world. And they very well may be the only one in their areas who have this kind of distinction. So that certainly is worth mentioning. Your clients, please don't forget about who you serve and how you serve them. And are you the only one who works with a specific client niche in your area? Are you the only one with the resources that you have? In other words, are you the only one who works with certain vendors and contractors in your area? That's certainly important. Your affiliations, perhaps you're the only member of ASID, NKBA, or some other organization in your area. And last and not least, your certifications and educational background. And again, you may be the only one in your area who's LEED certified, the only one who has educational background in aging in place, something along those lines. So there really are a lot of ways to figure out your only. And I know, especially if someone it takes themselves for granted, which so many design professionals do, sometimes they overlook the possibilities. But I cannot tell you how many ways you can distinguish yourself so you can really stand out in your marketplace.
So I can follow you, Fred, with these different ways to think about ourselves in different ways and to pull out things that we might be overlooking. But one of the things that I have had designers say back to me is, the worry about, well, how true is it? Like, for instance, I'll use myself as an example. I would say that I'm pretty sure that I'm the one doing custom window treatments and awnings in the Livingston area for the longest, okay? Because it's just, you know, um,
Even though you're only 21 years old.
exactly. But the thing is, the question is like, I mean, for me to blanket statement that, like, I'm like, what's so funny is I'm a particular person that has a real, thing with specific. I always have time saying this word, being specific. How about we say it that way, right?
Right.
And so what happens is I know that myself, I could make a really good educated guess that when I think about maybe the 2 or 3 people that are in my area that might do custom window treatments, I'm pretty sure that I'm older than them and have been doing it longer. But then when I turn around and want to put in print or on my website, I am the only one that has been doing this since 1982 or something like that. Then it gets to be like my brain goes, well, do you know it to be true? Like, do I have to know it to be true? Like, you know what I'm saying? And I have had designers say, well, I'm not the only lead designer. I don't know if I'm the only lead designer. And they wonder, how big of a pool do we have to be talking about in order to not be, lying? Like, this is the one thing, Fred, that people come back to me and say when I discuss how you've taught us over the last year.
And the most common question I get when I speak at design conferences around the world is, how do you know you're the only?
Right.
That's very intriguing. And here's how I answer that question. And here's how I'll answer your question, LuAnn. You do your due diligence. You check out websites. You review as much information as you can about your competitors in your area. And once you feel as if you've done all you can, and you basically put it out there. You make it.
And let somebody call you up and say, you know what?
Well, funny you should mention that, because contrary to what you may think, there is no only police. There is no one who's going to come knocking on your door at 5 o'clock and say, hey, LuAnn, you used your word only. And
you're not the oldest, craziest lady in window treatments in Livingston.
I would say this, that if for some reason you are called on it, then you certainly can modify and change it. And we'll talk about how to modify your only statement a little bit later on. But in nearly 30 years of working with design professionals at this point, I've never heard of a designer who was called on this. Once they adopted an only statement, I've never heard of anyone having to change it. But it could happen.
Yeah.
It could happen, in which case you simply modify it. Maybe you say you're the only Livingston-based kitchen and bath professional, or you're the only designer in your area with 25 years experience who. So you modify it somewhat, so you'll feel more comfortable doing it. But again, as crazy as it sounds, perhaps, this is not something which comes up. And I would say to you that if this is what's holding you back, again, do your homework, check out your competitors, maybe ask some of your contractors and vendors just to make sure. And then when you feel as if you've done as much research as you could about your competitors in your area, then go ahead and start promoting yourself as the only one. And I think you'll find that the benefits of having this distinction will far outweigh any kind of uncertainty you may have.
I mean, one of the things that I like is when you use the example, Joe Smith is the only kitchen area designer with a degree in finance or whatever it was that you said, because I think that actually, I like that. It says that, it implies that he's a businessman, that he handles his finances, that he is, I feel like as a consumer, I could look at that and say, oh, so I can have an expectation that this guy isn't going to be loosey-goosey with the monies. Do you know what I mean? And that is non-debatable. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if he has a finance degree and he's a kitchen guy, that's, I guess it still could be checked out. But, it's just when you get to the broader things, it's tougher. But I mean, even like if a designer has participated in a show house, I mean, if she just looks and says the only one in her town, of course, a show house is going to grab designers from all over the area, but usually they're not exactly in your same town. And you're saying that has benefits. So say there's a show house, there's 25 designers involved, and maybe every single designer in every town that borders you participated, but you're the only one in your town. You would describe that as a good only sentence, okay.
Again, you're the only Livingston-based designer who participated in the show house.
Right.
one of the words I like a lot with only is the word specialize. You're the only kitchen and bath professional who specializes in again, aging in place or something like that, or
Right,
specializes
right, right.
in working with commercial clients, or et cetera. Or some people say it specializes as extensively, or specializes to this degree.
Right.
And that's a way, again, to differentiate yourself. And that's what this is all about. I call only, the word only is your ultimate differentiator. It's many things. Your only is your branding phrase. Your only is your buzz builder. Your only is your fee and price justifier. If you want to raise your prices, the way to do that is talk about the fact you're the only designer who offers such and such a service. But most importantly, your only is your ultimate differentiator. I mean, tell me what only you do, and I will buy only from you.
Right. And I think that sometimes designers get hung up on it being a big thing. And what you're really describing this entire conversation is it doesn't need to be a big thing. It doesn't need to be this designer was in the AD. It's like, no, it's little, like when you said only Livingston, when even just the show house example, again, to go back to that, I could see a designer thinking, well, that's just a ridiculous statement. There were 50 designers in that show house. Why would I even bother saying I was the only one in Livingston? But the reality is that if you were, right? It doesn't,
Yes.
but I could see a designer minimizing it, in other words. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. And by doing so, they end up leaving money on the table.
Right. And so talk about that, because when you start to create some brand awareness as the only designer that this and that and the other thing, that correlates to, like you just started to talk about, the fees and what you charge for the fees, because you elevate yourself as a little above the others, a little bit more expert, and therefore you can get away with charging X amount of dollars more per hour or flat fee more, whatever, right?
Right. And the word only is what I consider to be the best price objection protection that a designer has. Because if someone raises objections about their price, and by the way, that comes up a lot, I realize, and I think some designers would rather swallow formaldehyde than face price objections. But anyway, if it comes up, you have to say, if they say so-and-so charges less than you do, your response is, we have to understand I'm the only designer in this area who specializes. I'm the only designer with 25 years experience. I'm the only designer in this area who has worked with 700 clients or whatever. And that gets them to understand. And one of the things I do a lot as a copywriter for designers, I help them with rate hike letters, usually a couple times, or usually in January is the time we do that. But we compose an email letter to all their clients talking about the fact that they're raising their fees. And what we do to minimize the objections to that is we enclose a copy of their bio, which includes all sorts of onlys. I've written their bio, and the bio is filled with onlys. And then the people get it. And then the pushback, the feedback is positive. The pushback is minimal. And they're able to seamlessly set and get higher fees because they've distinguished themselves by using and promoting the word only in the bio, which is attached to the rate hike letter. So it is definitely a way to set yourself apart and justify your higher fees. And once you educate people as to your value, then you'll be surprised how little resistance you get when you charge top dollar as a designer.
Right. Well, I think, too, one of the things that people overlook is the way to spin what their situation is. So if you take two sides of a coin, right? So if you have one designer in an area who's going to say, look, I'm the only designer in the area that has 3 full-time design assistants on staff, a project manager, yada, 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 right? So that's a value. Then on the other side, I could see the solo in the area saying, look, I'm the only one here that runs my business myself. I do everything. I oversee everything. Nothing is, set out to an assistant, right? I mean, so it's like you can make both sides sound fabulous. Of course, we all know that everyone would rather have an assistant, but if you don't, you could just talk about how I only take one project at a time because I do everything for that project, everything I have my eyeballs on, right?
Yeah, yeah, without question. And you can talk about your personalized, customized service. You're the only one who oversees the project from beginning to end or whatever. And as you say, promote the fact that you have total control of the business.
Yeah, I mean, you might really aspire to have 3 design assistants, but until you have them, work it to your favor and explain it in a way that it's a plus, right?
Yeah,
So,
and I would encourage, by the way, before I forget this, I want to interject this in our conversation, and that is, I would encourage the designers listening to this program to highlight rather than hide their past when they're trying to come up with their own lead. And I'll give you an example. I was doing a bio for a California designer who was just starting out. And I was saying, well, so what did you do before you? I know you're new to design. I know you don't have much background. You don't have a portfolio yet, and you just got out of school. But what did you used to do? And she said, well, I don't really talk about it much. It's not really relevant to design. But I persisted. I said, so what did you used to do? Well, I was the marketing director for HP for 25 years. I traveled around the world as a marketing director. And I said, that's your only. So when we created her bio, we talked about how the fact she was the only California designer with this kind of corporate America experience. And guess what? She started attracting all sorts of CEOs and Fortune 500 executives and high-tech officials because they felt comfortable with the fact that she had this background.
and that she could talk their language.
Spoke their language, absolutely. So what did you, when all else fails, think in terms of your past and highlight that past. And most importantly, think about the benefits your clients today get from the fact that you were involved working with in an administrative capacity or were headed another company or whatever. What are the benefits they gain from that? And then you can talk about the fact you're the only one with this extensive experience in coaching or consultation or financial matters or whatever. So that's a case where you can easily come up with your only simply by identifying what you used to do.
Exactly. You know, we recently had a program with Karina from Superior Interiors Karina Jones from Superior Interiors in Charlotte. And she was a teacher. She was an educator. She has a communications degree, an education degree. And she, talked on the show about how she feels that she goes through her process just a little differently, a little bit more in detail, a little bit more in depth. And she almost strives to explain everything in such a way that if the client were to want to do another room that they would never have called her another designer for on their own, that they have some skills now to go ahead do it because she's explained the why and the how of her decisions. Because being a teacher, that's what's so her passion, that's her natural to her. So she needs to talk about that in her marketing, right? That she comes from an education and teaching background.
What are the benefits her design clients get today from her teaching background?
Oh, so that's a good key. The benefits of working with me are you really are going to understand the process and the principles and the reasons for my decisions. You'll come out. Yes. So that's the way to describe it. Talk in the solutions that it creates for the client.
Right.
Okay.
But, we've been talking a lot in more general terms. I want to give some specific examples of only statements to assure people that there are a lot of possibilities. If you go to my website, which is interiordesignbusiness.net, there is a publication that I make available among the educational tools called the Big Splash Little Cash Marketing Manual. And it's a whole chapter in that Big Splash Little Cash Marketing Manual on only statements. And let me just give you some examples of what it includes. The region's only award-winning interior architectural firm specializing in green and universal design. The only real estate stager with experience with both residential and commercial interiors in northern Michigan. The only award-winning firm in Canada with over 40 professionals dedicated solely to the practice of interior design. The only interior designer in Florida known for residential and commercial design of spaces specifically used by children. The only design firm specializing in both architectural detailing and interior design in the Edmonton metropolitan area. The only local window fashion professional who specializes in assisted living facilities in Mexico City. The only full-service design firm with experience designing country clubs and spas throughout the Southeast. The area's only home stager with a degree in landscape architecture. The area's only LEED certified design and architecture company, and finally, the only company which provides Technion furniture to offices in the Milwaukee metropolitan area. So that's just a handful of the many possibilities here. But when you listen to those, you'll realize that this is not rocket science. This is not brain surgery. It's just a matter of looking at your business, putting your business under a microscope, and figuring out what is the nugget, what is it that you offer that no one else does.
Right. And I think that's really the key in all the conversations I've had, is that when you think about yourself, to really just drill all the way down to the tiniest things that make you you, because it's like you know something so closely that you don't even see the differences. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like we make it a bigger thing. Like we're looking for that big, the only designer on HGTV. It's like, no, it's not that big thing. It's a little thing, you know? I've talked about Debbie Pinelli on the show before too, because similar to the example that you made, she comes from a corporate background and she speaks their language, the language of working mothers. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, and I had an interview one day this week that she said that what she really identifies with is single women, professional, corporate, with no children. And she said, because that's what she is. And, you know, she talks their language and she knows what they need. And so there's a way to put that into your branding. And so where do we use this only word? We use it where do we use it? We use it on our about page. We use it on every page. Where do we use this only word?
Use it as wherever and whenever you can, actually. Most prominently, you use it in your bios. I'll give you a couple examples of lead statements with only statements in just a second.
Okay.
But in your social media, in your blogging, in the about the author section, whenever you write something, that's when the only statement comes up. So that's a really good place to be thinking about where to use it and when to use it. And basically in all of your marketing and in your client communication. You always want to have your email signature, that kind of thing. Whenever you describe yourself, your branding phrase, your elevator statement should include the word only.
Okay.
And again, you and I have talked about bios being the most vital and versatile and valuable tool for design professionals. I just want to read 3 examples of the first paragraphs of bios to give our listeners an idea how they can incorporate this powerful word into their personal promotion profiles, both not just on their website and their house sites, but also in their social media.
Okay.
Gina Morrison, one of America's most versatile and multi-talented design professionals, is Montana's only luxury custom kitchen design specialist with 40 years experience. Heidi Sawatsky is the only award-winning interior designer who specializes in helping St. Louis financial professionals and other prominent clients enhance the beauty and value of their homes. And one last example, Michelle Lauer, the area's only interior designer whose work has been published internationally, is widely recognized for her luxury residential design expertise and her extraordinary custom furniture designs. So if you can incorporate, and you can, by the way, but incorporating your only statement in your bio, in the first paragraph of your bio, really has an impact. Talk about making instant impact, talking about making yourself memorable. Right. This is how you do it, by incorporating your only statement. And again, I would suggest the one easy way to think about this is ask yourself this: what do you offer? What do you do? And how do you provide design services in a way that no one else does? And is that your only,
Right. So, I mean, it even could just be a way you handle a project, the steps, or the only area designer that has a customized 5-step project, whatever, planner or something. You know what I'm saying?
The only one offering 3D imagery, maybe.
Okay, right.
Do it,
And then talk about like the people that are just coming out of school. That was a great suggestion, how you talked, but that was a particular person that has 25 years experience from another industry. What about the interior designer who maybe has graduated 2 years ago, has just spent a year or 2 working at another firm and is, opening up and putting their shingle out? What kinds of things could be there only?
Well, again, we want to look at their background, where they came from, and if they had a work history before they began their design career. Maybe the education they received. Did they do an internship overseas or something? I was coaching a designer in Vietnam who had just come back from Florence, Italy, and so we promoted the fact that she was the only one who had this training, the only one in her area who had this training in Italy. So
Now, that would be likely in Vietnam, but it's not likely that somebody in like a major city here wouldn't have spent a semester abroad. Is there a way to tweak that to include in there that you
semester abroad? Did you get involved with a project, especially a unique project, a commercial project of some kind?
Okay.
That really sets you apart, even if it gets down to the courses you took.
I was just going to say, is there a way to take into it, because what I would feel is one of the advantage that a newly graduated designer could capitalize on is the fact that they are the most up to date on probably all the technology that relates to the field. So, but they're no different than the other 50 people that graduated. So, how do you talk about that?
Let's say you took several courses and became especially interested in green design, for example, and then you point out the fact in your promotional materials you're the only area designer who specializes to such an extensive degree in green design. Now, that might be a little bit harder to spell out, but I don't think necessarily you have to have a work history to back yourself up. If this is something you've researched over a period of time, if you've taken a lot of courses in it, you are a specialist. And one of the things I offer is something called a victory vocabulary, which is 75 words that design professionals should choose to use to describe themselves. And of course, prominently displayed is the word only, but there are other words as well. And one of the words on there is the word expert. And if you look in the dictionary, if there is still such a thing as a dictionary, under the word expert, you'll see the definition skilled person. Right. So everyone can call themselves experts,
So what we're saying is that if someone has just come out of school and they have a particular interest in, say hospitality design, even if they just open their firm, what we're explaining is that you specialize in hospitality design. You might have not one client yet, but you've done more work in that field in your education and in your internships than in other parts of the field. And that's what your focus is going to be. So you are an expert in hospitality design. Boom, slam dunk, you're done. Stop,
There's
right?
Lost traction here, LuAnn. I mean, I was working with a Boston designer who had never done any work outside of the state. And her big thing is she wanted to be international. She wanted to expand her commercial design practice all over the world. And guess what? Guess how we started promoting her? We promoted her as a design professional who's expanding her services and work with clients all over the world. And now she's one of the most successful international Boston-based designers around because of that.
She just announced that was what she was doing. She hadn't done it yet, right? That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons when I write bios and other promotional copy, I suggest that designers mention the types of clients they work with is because of the law of attraction. In other words, again, the CEOs, the Fortune 500 company executives, the doctors, the lawyers, the celebrities, if these are the kind of clients you want to work with, then put those in your promotional materials, about how you specialize in working with them. You may not be there yet, but guess what? Once you start getting the word out, you're going to attract those kind of outcomes. It is really interesting. And is this fake it till you make it? Well, maybe. That could be it, but it sure beats the alternative,
Well, and the truth is, though, that yes and no on fake it till you make it, because if you are a new designer who has spent extra time and effort to learn a particular niche of the industry, like you said, they are expert at it. They might not be as versed as somebody who's doing it 25 years, but they're going to be more versed than a regular client that's never had 1 minute of education in it. So it's, you don't want to, we're not encouraging anybody to go out there and take on a project that they're not capable of doing.
No.
But the fact is that, what we also say on the program is that if you're a brand new designer, you should be networking and you should be meeting your colleagues, because if your branding and if your marketing brings in a project that's a dream project, but you recognize that it might be a little bit above what you're able to do at that point from a project management standpoint, then we've said before on the program, reach out to a colleague and say, could we partner on this? What could we do that I could access what you know? And of course, I'm walking you into this job. And so there are ways, if your marketing is so darn good that you get a job you're not quite ready for, to handle it, right?
One of my discoveries after all these years of going around the world speaking to design groups is that the most financially successful designers, LuAnn, without question, are not necessarily the best designers.
Right.
They don't have the most
That's
degrees
true.
necessarily. They haven't won the most awards. They haven't necessarily been featured in the most publications. The most financially successful design professionals are the best marketers, the best self-promoters, the best personal salesmen, and the best personal saleswomen. And they're the ones most likely to be able to share with you their only statement, because they are so skilled at this. Right. And I wanted to add a quick aside that I always thought was interesting. This powerful, magnificent $1 million marketing word called only, it can be misused. Years ago, I was just starting out, and I had a new book out called Sell Yourself, 501 Ways to Get Them to Buy From You. And I was on a book tour, and I was speaking to a group in Atlanta, just a general audience, and somebody came after me afterwards, virtually about to cry. I mean, she was looked so devastated, so sad, and she said, "Mr. Berns, I enjoyed your talk. It's just too bad that nothing you said really applies to me."
What?
And I was shocked. I felt so badly. I said, "What do you mean? What are you saying?" She said, "Well," she said, "I'm only an interior designer. I don't have any marketing background or branding background. I'm only an interior designer." And I said, "Ma'am, I think you have that backwards. Right. Don't tell me you're only an interior designer. Begin that sentence by saying, I'm the only interior designer who."
Right.
That's powerful marketing.
Yes. Yeah. Because that was a mixed crowd, the Sell Yourself book. And so just a coincidence that it was a designer, and she thought that wasn't special enough. And
as a matter of fact, that was my introduction to interior designers.
That's when you made the crossover and niched?
Shortly thereafter.
Started to.
That one-on-one with that poor lady, I was motivated, I guess, to niche in this industry.
Yes, yeah. So, interesting. I mean, so what else? Is there anything else that we need to think about when we're crafting our only and really, having a little heart-to-heart with ourselves and coming up with what it is? And I just keep hammering hammering back. It's a little detail. There's a little detail about each of us that makes us different. In WindowWorks, I'll say a lot of times always we present it when at some point during the sales presentation, but when it comes down to it, one of the things I really hammer home is we are the only window treatment professional and awning professional in the area that has our own installation staff. And that's huge. That is huge. I mean, because that is something that, on one hand, it might seem like a little thing, but on the other hand, I know as a consumer, when I look in your face and I say, my employee is going to show up here, he is going to have a WindowWorks shirt on. You're not going to wonder where he came from and does he do this for a living? And then next week, is he laying carpet? And this week he's putting blinds up. It's like, he does this for a living. And so that carries a lot of weight for people, Right.
Well, only does carry a lot of weight. And I want to let people know that only is not the only powerful personal promotion word. I mean, I like words like first and newest and oldest and exclusive and those kind of things. It's just the best word, I think. And I want to assure people again that everyone listening to this program has an only. And what I always say is that to bring this point home, tell me what only you do and I'll buy only from you. And I tell people, give me 30 minutes and I will give you your only. And not only that, I'll give you an entire promotional campaign you can build around communicating your only. And as a matter of fact, I do this in a session called the bio briefing. I do a 30-minute discussion with people, and we pinpoint their only, and we come up with strategies they can use, not just in their bio, but in all their marketing to really brand themselves in a way that's unique in their area. So if our listeners are interested in that, go to biobriefing.com, BIOBRIEFING.com, and they can sign up for that. And if they want to reach me, LuAnn, I'm at 303-589-3013, 303-589-3013. And my website is interiordesignbusiness.net. interiordesignbusiness.net.
It's awesome, Fred. And I have to say, you and I did the bio briefing, and I had my eyes opened. I remember we started the conversation. You're like, okay, so, what's different about you? I'm like, Fred, I don't think there's anything different about me. And by the time we hung up, I was like, well, okay. So
I'll tell you one thing different about you, LuAnn. You happen to be the hostess of the most amazing podcast in America. That's what your only is. You're the only one.
I know. I've started to use the hashtag podcast queen, if you've noticed.
Podcast queen, podcast princess, whatever you want to call yourself. You are a rock star. And
Thank you.
Podcast is so amazing.
No, I appreciate it. But I am really just testifying to the fact that you really do have a particular skill in extracting from us what our only is. And I highly recommend the bio briefing to anybody that is sitting there thinking, I still don't get it. I don't have an only, because Fred will help you figure out what it is. It's for sure.
Everyone has one, believe me.
That's it. I agree. Well, thank you so much, Fred, for coming on the show again. I always love it. I like I said, you have to. I know a lot of what you're talking about at this point because we've talked so often, but I still have an entire paper filled with notes from this conversation. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.